What up, my fellow NBA lovers? This is your guy, Marcellus Ease. And this year's finals kind of has the same genetic makeup of the 2011 NBA Finals, in which the Dallas Mavericks were able to utilize the Miami Heat using a few options. Number one being Tyson Chandler, having a big man in the middle to disrupt LeBron James from getting to the hole. And then they had a number of three-point shooters. You had J.J. Barea, Dirk Nowitzki, Jason Kidd, Sean Marion, and even Jason Terry, who went off for 18 points a game in that series. Now, that team kind of has the same genetic makeup as this Miami Heat team. We got guys like Tyler Hero, Jay Crowder, Andre Iguodala, Duncan coming off the bench shooting threes, even Chris Nunn. They really haven't even used this guy. Miami has a lot of players that can shoot threes and also guard LeBron James. You look at the Mavericks, it has Sean Marion that can guard LeBron James. Miami has Andre Iguodala that can guard LeBron James and even switch with Jimmy Butler. So this series could be a lot closer than what people think. I expect Anthony Davis, if he dominates Bam Adebayo, then this could change the whole series. The Lakers should easily win this matchup. You guys check out this segment, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Welcome back to First Take. I'm coming to you live here from the Heineken River Deck. We bring back Kendrick Perkins. Perk, I actually want to start with you here on this one. How likely are the Heat to upset LA?
Well, first of all, Molly, let me say this: the Heat have earned the right to be in the finals. They play phenomenal basketball. They're well coached. They got a lot of young stars and Tyler Hero and Bam. Goran Dragic has been phenomenal. Jimmy Butler has been a great leader, and he's provided, great production to get them to this point. Now, to answer your question, to upset the Lakers, I give them a 0 chance. It ain't happening. It's not happening. When you talk about
Nah, that's crazy. I mean, that's not even close. 0 chance. I mean, they do have a chance. I wouldn't say it's a 0 chance. LeBron James is not quite in his prime. He is going to be dancing around in the perimeter, trying to blow past guys. And if you see a lot of the highlights, he's pushing off guys because he's not as fast as he used to be. And Miami has multiple guys that are relentless all the way through the fourth quarter. They play all 4 quarters. These guys are in great shape. You know how Pat Riley is. You got to show up with a certain percentage of body fat. The Heat are going to be dogs down to the wire.
LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the best duo since Kobe and Shaq. 2 guys that are on a mission. Anthony Davis is averaging almost a 30-piece wing dinner right now.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, Pastor Perkins, if they're not passing that collection plate hard enough, man, for him to get a dinner. But just to mention food right now is crazy. But just looking at the Lakers right now, outside of James and Davis, you got to ask yourself, who are they really going to? Caldwell Pope, like I said, the last series he was coming up. Kuzma played less minutes, but could they really rely on this guy to be consistent shooting 3-pointers? Same thing for Danny Green. Very inconsistent last series.
Generational talent, 101. LeBron James, we know he's...
I mean, look at right there. You saw that push off that James did. James now does a lot of that. And the fact that he's playing point guard, normally you got to blow past guys. So Miami, they have a lot of guys, especially on the perimeter, that could defend. Because you know how Pat Riley is.
On the mission, people might not want to talk about it, but we already know this is not just the Heat and Lakers. This is Pat Riley versus LeBron James. And LeBron James really want to win this series, in my opinion. And then on top of that, they have 2 of the best floor generals to ever play the game of basketball.
Man, that Anthony Davis versus Bam matchup is going to be nuts. But it's crazy because both of these guys, I believe Anthony Davis might be even bigger than Bam. Bam is 6'9"
on the court, and that's LeBron James and Rajon Rondo. And when I mean by floor generals, I'm not talking about point guards. I'm talking about coaches that are on the floor that are able to make adjustments on the fly. And when you have that, that's just an advantage in itself. I don't care what kind of zone Eric Spoelstra throw out there. Those guys are able to read it and put their teammates in position to be successful. And I also believe that the depth of Miami B.
Now notice how LeBron is doing a lot of settling in these highlights. He's not going to blow past guys. If he was playing down low, it may be an issue for Miami because they only have one guy to guard Davis. They're not going to have another guy to guard James down low. But the fact that he's out there, triple threat, trying to blow past guys, that stuff is not going to work.
Is not enough to overpower the Lakers. Bam is special, but what happens if he get in foul trouble? Who's going to guard Anthony Davis? You could throw Dwight Howard in there. He's going to mix it up.
That Dwight Howard, he could be a key factor in this series, but it was very interesting in the last series how they threw him in just to start off the matchups. They kept him in for a decent amount of time, but that could create an issue for Miami because Bam, like I said, he's only 6'9", but they just need Davis to take over, and I would not be surprised if Anthony Davis ends up winning the MVP in this series.
I think their lack of size in the inside, where if something was to, just putting all the ownership on Bam plays a huge part. And by the way, Jimmy Butler is going to have to up his points. It can't be 19 points like he did against the Celtics. He's going to have to average 25 plus, and I don't think that could happen.
I don't think he has to average 25 plus. As long as the other guys contribute the same way they were doing before, it's because they play according to the flow of the game. So they have other guys that could come up and step up based off of the last series. But Jimmy doesn't have to dominate. I mean, you look at even the last game with Boston, Bam just was killing. Jimmy didn't even have to be a factor, but Jimmy's going to be a factor in other ends of the court. Defending LeBron James, getting steals, rebounds, assists. I mean, everybody on this team, from the center all the way to the point guard, gets rebounds, gets steals, gets assists. Everybody contributes in every category. That's what's special about this team. And it could be going down the wire. It could be, in like just the extra yard that they need to get over on the Lakers, because the Lakers really only have Anthony Davis and LeBron James doing everything.
Yes, I did say they remind me of the 2004 Detroit Pistons, and I had to go back and do my research. When the Detroit Pistons beat the Los Angeles Lakers with Kobe, Shaq, Karl Malone, and Gary Payton, Shaq averaged 26, Kobe averaged 22. No one else averaged over 8 points, and the Detroit Pistons defense was phenomenal. They held the Lakers to 80 points a game.
And the reason why all that happened is because Detroit actually, all 5 players, they played team ball and they actually utilized a lot of smarts because they forced Kobe to struggle in the first half and let Shaq just eat. And they knew in the second half Kobe was going to try to outscore everyone, and they kind of used that against him. And also, you got to combine that with the smart coaching of Larry Brown. So you kind of have the same makeup right here with the Miami Heat. They have great coaching, and everyone kind of understands their role and plays a team-oriented defense. And offensively, they move as one unit.
I don't see that happening with the Miami Heat versus this Los Angeles Lakers team. And I think the Lakers are on the mission. I know they're on the mission. And I believe that the Lakers will beat them in 6 games.
As long as that three-point shooting is up, man. Caruso, Danny Green, Kuzma, Caldwell Pope, these guys got to be on point. Even per game, if only one guy steps up, drops 20, drops 15, 17 off the bench, every game has got to be a different guy that's got to step up. Same thing that Miami's been doing kind of consistently throughout the playoffs. But Miami has stopped Giannis, which is like baby Shaq on his own. And you never know. They're drawing up a game plan for Davis, and they may end up trying to take out Davis and let James do everything at his age because he's out of his prime. And then James most likely is going to end up, deferring to other guys because of his position at point guard, which to me is still questionable. We'll see, because this team defensively, this Miami Heat team, all 5 guys are very smart defensively. And if they take out Davis, I'd love to see what LeBron James is going to do as far as being the point guard and deferring the ball to other guys that are very inconsistent, at the same time dealing with Andre Iguodala and Jimmy Butler taking turns guarding him.
Well, first of all, it's not stepping out on a limb for anybody to say that the Lakers are going to win this series because we all believe it. It's just that the only person that America doesn't nor should it want to hear from on this particular matter is Max Kellerman, because he was so busy raving not only about the Clippers but about how Kawhi Leonard was the best player on the planet. He actually thought just saying whoops one day was going to get him off the hook. No, whoops doesn't cut it. We ain't letting that go, okay? But having said all of that, I will say this to you. I'm not going to disrespect the Miami Heat, KP, by giving them a 0% chance. Do I believe the Lakers are going to win the series? Yes. I believe the Lakers will win in 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, Stephen A. Smith, he's the wrong person to talk, because he said the same thing about the Detroit Pistons, that they were going to get swept, and he was wrong about that. And he's been wrong about, I believe, 9 straight finals in a row. So it's kind of hard to take his word.
I'm going to show respect by saying 6, although I really, really believe it's probably going to be 5. But here's what makes Miami the wild card that I believe them to be, which is why I would give them like a 25% chance. Just like Max Kellerman, the boxing analyst extraordinaire that he is, always dissects about how styles make fights and how if you got a punch, you got a puncher's chance. Well, a punch coming from the Heat in the sport of basketball is their perimeter shooting. It's Tyler Hero, who's averaging 19 points a game. It's Duncan Robinson, who shot 40% from the 3-point range in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's Bam Adebayo, who's averaged 22 and 11. And oh, by the way, when he was so dissatisfied and disgusted with his play in Game 5, came out in Game 6 and dropped 32 and 14. It's also the Heat collectively.
And they also, like I said, they also got Chris Nunn off the bench. They really haven't even used yet. And he was averaging like 20 points a game during the season, 18 to 20 points a game. They also have Daniel Jones, who's an athletic freak, and he can guard multiple positions. And, you know, Miami overall as a unit, this team is very deep. And they can rely on multiple people to do a lot of different things. The Lakers, their key hole is that 3-point shooting from the role players on the team.
Having a puncher's chance because they've got this bunker mentality. They know all the odds are stacked against them, and they're playing with house money. Now, what I do get tired about is these players is lying to the American public. Jimmy Butler, nobody picked you to be here. There's 2 people on this show right now who picked you to be there. It would be Kendrick Perkins and myself. We both picked the Miami Heat to be in the finals. So Jimmy Butler, stop lying to the American public, my brother. We did pick you. It's just that we ain't picking you to win. And what we have to look at when we look at the Miami Heat, if they're making perimeter shots, we also have to remember, KP, their experience. I wouldn't ignore Jay Crowder. I wouldn't ignore Goran Dragic to add to Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. I wouldn't ignore Jimmy Butler either. Their depth is a question mark against the Los Angeles Lakers. The Los Angeles Lakers show up and give you what they give you on a night in, night out basis.
And what is that? Outside of Anthony Davis and LeBron James, we have to ask ourselves, what is that? We just seen them, you know, go ham against a Denver team that barely plays any defense. And they were struggling throughout the bubble in the beginning, especially on the offensive end. And we have to remember the bubble now, there's less pressure on these guys. These guys are in a gym, in a like summer camp, college gym type atmosphere. So there's a lot less pressure on these guys. It's just no fans. It's just straight one-on-one basketball. That's it. So it's hard nosed, and it's a lot less pressure. So guys that normally like Chris Nunn, Tyler Hero, Jay Crowder, they ain't got to deal with none of that crowd, none of that pressure. It's just a gym YMCA type atmosphere.
Defensively, but offensively, in terms of their perimeter shooting, they could be sporadic. If they're sporadic one day, while Miami is hitting perimeter shots after perimeter shots, then they could make this series very interesting. It's because of that I say 25%. It's just a puncher's chance where if they're making perimeter shots, I think they could turn this into a series. I don't think they will consistently. I think they'll do it for a game or 2. That's about it. But it could happen. And because of the combination of their shooting and how sporadic the Lakers could be from the perimeter at times, that's where I give them a puncher's chance. It's the only chance, but that's where the chance comes from.
Yeah, that didn't even make any sense. The fact that he knows the Lakers are sporadic from 3-point range, I mean, like I said, the Lakers should have the advantage. They got LeBron James with all the experience and Anthony Davis. They got the best players on the court. Outside of those two guys, you don't really know what you're getting outside of that.
I'd say that he'd have a 1-in-3 shot. Look, traditionally in the NBA, not just like just go through the history of the league. Not just, you can even go past the modern era into like the pre-3-point shot era. When two top 5 players are on the same team, that team almost always wins the championship. Of course, you're right about Rondo and LeBron. And you can talk about other players and then picking up with Dwight Howard now, he's done it. It's not really about that. Any team LeBron is on, you'll start to notice the role players and think, boy, they really do a good job. But that's because LeBron's on the team. He knows how to orchestrate it all. And that's why, whoops, he's been the best all along, right? So LeBron and AD is very likely to win. I will say this, and Stephen A., I brought up a couple of teams from the past, and you homed in on the 2004 Pistons as an exception to the rule. Those Pistons teams, that Pistons team, did not have an MVP caliber player, right? Almost never does a team win a championship without an MVP caliber player. You want to look, usually it takes 2, Steph and KD, and now they can't lose, right? LeBron and Kyrie, and they got 1, or LeBron and Wade, Kobe and Shaq. Almost never without an MVP caliber player. Even when the Mavericks upset the Heat, they had an MVP caliber player, at least one, in Dirk. So the Lakers have 2 and they should win. But when you talk about the 2004 Pistons, which one of the all-time great defensive teams in the history of American team sports. Like you look at them, you look at like the Cardinals in '83 with Ozzie Smith and all those guys. You look at the Bears in '85 or Tampa when they beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl. Like it's one of the greatest defensive teams of all time. They were special that way, and that's not quite this Heat team. But like that Pistons team, they're extremely well balanced with a bunch of guys, as you would say, Stephen A., rough riders who all will fight hard and know their jobs.
It sounds like the Detroit Pistons teams. Even Rasheed Wallace has said when he joined that team, he understood his role. A lot of those guys, man, they could have averaged 20 points a game if they went on a team by themselves. Just one of these small market teams that just always losing. Any one of those guys could have averaged 20 points a game, except for Ben Wallace. He just would have been a defensive monster. But everyone understood their role. From Tayshaun Prince to Rip Hamilton, everyone was under one general, and that was Larry Brown. It's pretty much the same thing in Miami. It's one general, and that's Pat Riley. Everyone's under him, even the coach, all the way through the players.
So it's a versatile kind of team that they're throwing out there against these Lakers. I give them a puncher's chance, Stephen A., as you do, but I would say it's a 1-in-3 shot, not a 1-in-4 shot. Because this Heat team, by the way, has lost one more playoff game than the Lakers have so far. One. They've both really been dominant in this postseason.
That's very interesting. And you know what? Before the pandemic had hit, the Lakers only won 4 more games than the Raptors did. So, I mean, now everyone wants to, do revisionist history that LeBron James should get the MVP, not Giannis, even though it's a regular season award. Giannis played he averaged about 5 less minutes a game than James did, and he was just dominating. But it is what it is. I expect Anthony Davis, if he's on his P's and Q's, to dominate and be that deciding factor and end up taking that MVP. It is what it is. You guys stay safe. Enjoy the game. Peace.